Hey everyone, my name is Benjamin Carter, and I am from United States of America. Today I'm going to share with you the most terrifying experience of my life, something that happened to me just 3 weeks ago at an abandoned motel right here in Chicago, Illinois. This is a story about room number 6, a room we were explicitly told never to open, never to enter, and definitely never to clean. Before I dive into this nightmare, I can see that 80% of my viewers haven't subscribed while watching these videos. If you're enjoying the content, please hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon for notifications. Also, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching this video from. I absolutely love hearing from all of you around the world. Now, let me tell you about the worst job I ever took. It was a cold Tuesday morning in late October when I got the call. I work for Midwest Restoration Services, a company that specializes in cleaning up abandoned buildings, foreclosed homes, and properties that have been sitting empty for years. The pay is decent, but the work, well, let's just say it's not for everyone. The caller was a woman named Charlotte Williams. She spoke with a slight British accent and claimed to represent a real estate investment firm based out of Toronto, Canada. She needed a team to clean and assess an old motel that had been sitting abandoned for nearly 15 years on the outskirts of Chicago. The Sunset Manor Motel, that was its name, located on a stretch of highway that barely sees any traffic anymore. Charlotte explained that her firm had recently acquired the property and needed it cleaned before they could bring in appraisers and contractors. The pay was generous, almost too generous. $3,000 for what should have been a 2-day job. But there was one condition, one very specific instruction that she repeated 3 times during our phone conversation. Under no circumstances were we to open room number 6. She said the door was locked, had been locked for over a decade, and was to remain that way. The room would be dealt with by specialists at a later date. Our job was to clean and document every other room in the motel, all 23 of them. But room 6 was completely off limits. I should have known something was wrong right then and there. But $3,000 is $3,000, and business had been slow that month. I assembled my usual team. Daniel Martinez, my partner for the past 5 years, reliable, hard-working, and not easily spooked. Harper Johnson, our newest team member, young, energetic, fresh out of college with a degree in environmental science. And Amelia Foster, our documentation specialist, handles all the photography and paperwork. We met at the Sunset Manor Motel at 8 a.m. sharp that Wednesday morning. The place looked exactly like what you'd expect from an abandoned roadside motel. Peeling paint, broken windows, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot, a faded neon sign that probably hadn't worked since the Clinton administration hung crooked above the main office. But it was room 6 that immediately caught our attention. While every other room had the typical hollow-core motel door, some damaged, some hanging off their hinges, room 6 had a heavy steel door, the kind you might see in a bank vault or a high-security facility. There were no windows, just solid concrete walls where the windows should have been. Harper was the first to point it out. Why does that room look so different from all the others? Daniel shrugged. Maybe it was the manager's office or storage room. Some of these old motels had reinforced rooms for valuables. But I wasn't convinced. The door had multiple locks, heavy-duty deadbolts, and what appeared to be a chain wrapped around the handle. Someone had really wanted to keep whatever was inside that room from getting out, or perhaps to keep people from getting in. We started with the office, documenting everything, taking photographs, making notes about structural damage and necessary repairs. The place was a mess. Years of neglect, water damage, and what appeared to be evidence of squatters who had used the place as temporary shelter. The first day went smoothly. We cleaned rooms 1 through 12, skipping room 6, of course. Each room told its own story, forgotten belongings, old newspapers from the early 2000s, remnants of lives that had briefly intersected with this forgotten place. But as we worked, I couldn't help but notice that room 6 seemed to be the center of attention for the local wildlife. Crows, dozens of them, perched on the roof directly above that room. They weren't aggressive, just watching, always watching. Amelia mentioned it during our lunch break. Has anyone else noticed those birds? They've been sitting in the exact same spots for hours. Daniel laughed it off. It's probably just a good vantage point. Crows are smart. They find the best spots to observe their territory. But Harper looked troubled. She had been studying environmental science. She knew bird behavior better than any of us. Crows don't typically gather in large numbers unless there's food or death, and they don't usually stay in one location for extended periods without reason. That first night, I went home and tried to research the Sunset Manor Motel online. What I found, or rather, what I didn't find, was disturbing. There were virtually no records of the place. No reviews on travel websites, no mentions in local newspapers, no historical documentation. For a motel that had allegedly operated for decades, it seemed to have left no digital footprint whatsoever. The only reference I could find was a single newspaper clipping from 1994, buried deep in the archives of the Chicago Tribune. The headline read, "Missing Family Case Goes Cold." The article mentioned that the Reynolds family of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, had been traveling through Illinois when they simply vanished. Their rental car was found in the parking lot of an unnamed roadside motel, but the family was never seen again. The article was brief, lacking details, but something about it made my skin crawl. Had they stayed at the Sunset Manor Motel? And if so, what had happened to them? The second day started normally enough. We began work on rooms 13 through 24, still avoiding room 6. But as the day progressed, strange things began to happen. It started with the sounds. Around 10 a.m., while we were cleaning room 15, we heard what sounded like muffled voices coming from room 6. Not clearly, just the cadence of conversation, rising and falling tones that suggested multiple people talking. Daniel was the first to comment. "Is there someone in that room?" We all stopped what we were doing and listened. The sounds continued for about 5 minutes, then stopped abruptly. Amelia suggested we call Charlotte to report the possible intruders, but when we tried, her phone went straight to voicemail. Every time, for the rest of the day. By noon, the voices had started again. This time they were louder, more distinct. It sounded like a family, a man, a woman, and what might have been children. But the words were muffled, distorted, like they were speaking through water. Harper was visibly shaken. "We need to call the police. There might be people trapped in there." But Daniel disagreed. Charlotte was very specific. "We're not supposed to go near that room. Maybe it's just acoustic oddities. Old buildings can carry sounds in weird ways." I wanted to believe Daniel, but deep down, I knew something was very wrong. The afternoon brought new horrors. Around 3 p.m., while Amelia was photographing room 18, she screamed. We all rushed to see what was wrong. She was standing in the doorway, camera shaking in her hands, pointing at the wall that separated room 18 from room 6. The wall was bleeding. Not paint, not rust stains. Actual blood was seeping through the wallpaper, creating dark red patches that seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat. Daniel immediately went outside to examine the exterior wall, looking for any possible explanation. A broken pipe, a dead animal, anything that could account for what we were seeing. But the exterior wall showed no signs of damage. No stains, no obvious source for the liquid that was somehow penetrating the interior wall. Harper suggested we pack up and leave immediately. "This isn't normal. This isn't safe. We need to get out of here." But I was torn. $3,000 was a lot of money, and we had already committed to finishing the job. Plus, despite everything, I was curious. What was in room 6? Why was it so heavily secured? And what was causing these strange phenomena? Against my better judgment, I decided we would finish the day and reassess in the morning. That decision I would regret for the rest of my life. Around 5 p.m., as we were preparing to wrap up for the day, the temperature began to drop dramatically. Not gradually, like evening approaching, but suddenly, like someone had opened a massive freezer. Within minutes, our breath was visible, and frost began forming on the windows of the rooms we were working in. But the strangest part, the most terrifying part, was that the cold seemed to be radiating from room 6. Daniel tried to rationalize it. Maybe there's a broken air conditioning unit in that room. Sometimes old HVAC systems malfunction and create temperature anomalies. But Amelia pointed out the obvious flaw in that theory. Daniel, this place has been abandoned for 15 years. There's no electricity. There's no functioning air conditioning. As the temperature continued to plummet, we heard new sounds from room 6. Scratching, like fingernails on wood or concrete. Rhythmic, desperate, like someone or something was trying to claw its way out. That's when Harper made a decision that changed everything. She walked up to room 6. "Harper, no," I shouted, but she was already at the door, pressing her ear against the cold steel. She listened for a moment, her face growing pale, then turned to us with an expression of absolute terror. "There are people in there," she whispered. "Multiple people. And they're asking for help." Daniel and I rushed to the door. Sure enough, we could hear voices, weak, desperate voices calling out. The words were unclear, but the tone was unmistakable. They were pleading, begging, crying for help. Amelia was already on her phone, dialing 911, but there was no signal, no bars, nothing. The phone that had worked perfectly all day was now completely dead. "We have to help them," Harper said, reaching for the chains wrapped around the door handle. "Wait," I said, grabbing her hand. "Charlotte specifically told us not to open this room. What if there's a reason? What if it's dangerous?" But Harper's eyes were filled with determination. "Benjamin, there are people dying in there. Listen to them. How can we just walk away?" The voices were getting weaker, more desperate. It sounded like a woman calling for her children, a man pleading for someone to help his family, children crying. Daniel found a crowbar in our equipment truck. "If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Everyone stays back except me. If something goes wrong, you all run." We tried one more time to call Charlotte, to call anyone, but our phones remained dead. The decision was ours to make. Daniel positioned the crowbar against the first chain, and with a loud crack, it snapped. Immediately, the temperature dropped even further, so cold that frost began forming on our clothing. The scratching sounds from inside the room became frantic, violent. The second chain broke more easily, as if it wanted to be broken. As Daniel reached for the locks on the door, Amelia grabbed my arm. "Look at the crows," she whispered. Above us, the dozens of crows that had been silently watching for 2 days suddenly took flight, all at once, creating a black cloud against the evening sky. But they didn't fly away. They circled directly above room 6, cawing in a way I had never heard before, almost screaming. Daniel managed to break the first lock, then the second. The voices inside the room suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Even the crows went quiet. Daniel's hand was on the door handle, ready to turn it, when Harper suddenly shouted, "Stop." We all froze. Harper was staring at something on the ground near the door, something we hadn't noticed before. Carved into the concrete, barely visible beneath years of dirt and debris, were words, "Do not open. They are not alive." The message was crude, carved hastily, like someone had used a rock or piece of metal in desperation. But the meaning was clear. Daniel stepped back from the door, his face pale. "What does that mean?" "They are not alive." Before anyone could answer, the voices started again. But this time they were different. They were mimicking us. Harper's voice came from inside the room. "Stop. Do not open. They are not alive." Then Daniel's voice. "What does that mean? They are not alive." Then my own voice, repeating words I had spoken just moments before. But the voices weren't quite right. They were hollow, empty, like recordings played through broken speakers. Amelia was backing away from the door, terror written across her face. "Those aren't people in there. Those are things, trying to sound like people." Harper was shaking. "But the family, we heard a family asking for help." "No," I said, understanding flooding over me like ice water. "We heard things, imitating a family asking for help. The Reynolds family, the missing family from Milwaukee. I think they've been in there all along, but not as themselves." Daniel dropped the crowbar. "We need to leave. Now." But as we turned to go, the door to room 6 began to rattle. Not like someone was trying to push it open from the inside, but like it was shaking itself vibrating with some invisible force. The steel door, thick, heavy, industrial grade, was moving like it was made of paper. And then we heard my voice again, coming from inside the room, but saying words I had never spoken. "Please help us. We've been trapped in here for so long, please. We're so cold, so hungry. Please let us out." My own voice, begging us to open the door. Harper looked at me with confusion. "Benjamin, is that you? How are you in there?" "I'm not in there," I whispered. "That's not me." But the voice continued, perfect mimicry. "We just want to go home, please. My family is scared. We've been trapped for 15 years, please." 15 years, the same amount of time the motel had been abandoned. Amelia was already running toward our truck. "We're leaving. Now." Daniel and I each grabbed one of Harper's arms. She seemed frozen, mesmerized by the sound of my voice coming from the locked room. As we dragged her toward the truck, the rattling of the door grew more violent, and more voices joined the chorus. Daniel's voice, "Help us, please help us." Amelia's voice, "We're so scared, don't leave us here." Harper's voice, "Why won't you save us?" All of our voices, mixed with others, older voices, voices that sounded like they had been calling for help for decades. We reached the truck just as the sun was setting, painting the sky blood red and casting long shadows across the motel parking lot. As Daniel started the engine, we heard one final sound from room 6. The steel door, that heavy reinforced door, slammed open with a sound like thunder. But we didn't look back. We couldn't look back. Daniel floored the accelerator, and we sped away from the Sunset Manor Motel as fast as the truck could carry us. It wasn't until we reached the main highway, miles away from that cursed place, that we finally stopped and caught our breath. Amelia was sobbing. Harper was in shock. Daniel was gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white, and I was trying to process what we had just experienced. "We need to call the police," Amelia said through her tears. "We need to tell someone." But what would we tell them? That we heard voices in an abandoned room? That we saw blood on a wall? That something was imitating our voices? Daniel pulled out his phone, which now had full signal, and dialed Charlotte Williams' number. This time, she answered immediately. "How did the job go?" she asked cheerfully, as if nothing had happened. "Charlotte," I said, taking the phone from Daniel, "we need to talk. There's something in room 6. Something that shouldn't be there." There was a long pause, then Charlotte's voice, but different now, colder. "Did you open the door?" "No, but we almost did. There were voices, people calling for help." Another pause, longer this time. "Benjamin," Charlotte said, and now I could hear something else in her voice, fear. "Listen to me very carefully. You need to forget about the Sunset Manor Motel. You need to forget about room 6. Take your payment and never speak of this again. But there might be people trapped in there." "There are no people in room 6, she said firmly. "There haven't been people in room 6 for a very long time. What's in there? What you heard, they're echoes. Imitations. Shadows of people who checked into that room decades ago and never checked out." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "The Reynolds family wasn't the first," Charlotte continued. "And they weren't the last. Room 6 has been collecting guests since the motel opened in 1962. Families, couples, solo travelers, anyone unlucky enough to be assigned that room would simply disappear. Then why don't you tear the place down? Why don't you destroy that room?" "Because," Charlotte's voice was barely a whisper now, "every time someone tries, every time someone even talks about destroying room 6, more people disappear. The motel, that room, it protects itself." I felt sick. "So you hired us to clean around it? To maintain the place while leaving that thing intact?" "The building needs to look maintained from the outside," she explained. "It needs to appear abandoned but not condemned. If it looks too deteriorated, if it attracts too much attention from urban explorers or paranormal investigators, room 6 gets hungry." Daniel grabbed the phone from me. "You're insane. You knowingly sent us into a dangerous situation." "I told you not to open room 6, Charlotte replied calmly. "I was very specific about that instruction. As long as you didn't open the door, as long as you didn't let them out, You were safe. Let them out, Harper whispered. She had been listening to the entire conversation. What would have happened if we had opened the door? Charlotte's answer chilled us to the bone. They would have followed you home. The line went dead. We drove in silence for the next hour, each of us lost in our own thoughts, trying to process what we had experienced, what we had learned. It wasn't until we reached Amelia's apartment that we realized something was wrong. Her phone was ringing. She answered hesitantly. Hello. Her face went white, and she slowly handed the phone to me. On the other end, I heard my own voice. Amelia, why did you leave us? We're still trapped in room 6. Please come back. Please help us. I ended the call immediately and turned off the phone, but within minutes, Daniel's phone started ringing, then Harper's, then mine. Each call, the same thing, our own voices begging us to return to the motel, pleading with us to open room 6, promising us that they just wanted to go home. We turned off all our phones, but it didn't stop. The calls started coming to our landlines, to our work numbers, to numbers we hadn't given to anyone. For 3 days, the calls continued, our voices, and the voices of others, men, women, children, all calling from room 6, all begging to be released. On the 4th day, the calls stopped. But that's when the visit started. Harper was the first to report it. She came to my apartment at 3 a.m., terrified and exhausted. They're at my house, she whispered, standing in my yard just watching. Who's at your house? Us, she said. Versions of us. They look exactly like us, but wrong somehow. They've been standing there for hours, just staring at my windows. Daniel arrived an hour later, reporting the same thing. Figures that looked like our team, standing silently in his front yard, watching his house. By morning, they were at my place too. For figures, standing perfectly still in the dawn light, exact copies of me. Daniel, Harper, and Amelia. But their eyes were wrong, completely black, and they never blinked. The police came when we called them, but they saw nothing. The figures were invisible to everyone except us. Mass hysteria. One officer suggested, you folks have been through some kind of trauma. You should probably talk to someone. But we knew what we were seeing, and we knew why. Charlotte had been wrong. Just being near room 6, just hearing the voices, just almost opening the door, had been enough. They had followed us home after all. For weeks, the figures stood watch outside our homes, never moving during the day. But at night, we could hear them walking around our houses, testing doors and windows, trying to find a way in. Amelia was the first to break. She couldn't handle the constant surveillance, the knowledge that things wearing our faces were stalking her. She moved to France. Figured distance might help. But they followed her there too. The last message I received from Amelia was a video call. She was in her apartment in Paris, and behind her, through the window, I could see them, the 4 figures, standing in the street below, watching. They're everywhere, she whispered before ending the call. No matter where I go, they're always watching. Daniel lasted longer, about 6 months, before he couldn't take it anymore. He moved back home to his family in Mexico, but they followed him there too. His mother called me, terrified, describing figures that looked like Daniel standing in their yard, but wrong, with black eyes that never blinked. Daniel's last message to me was simple. I'm going back to Chicago. I'm going to end this. I haven't heard from him since. Harper tried to fight back. She researched everything she could about the Sunset Manor Motel, about room 6, about the missing people. She found records going back decades, families, individuals, all who had disappeared after staying at the motel, all who had been assigned to room 6. She discovered that the motel had been built on the site of an old psychiatric hospital, a place where experimental treatments had been conducted in the 1940s and 1950s, treatments that had gone horribly wrong. Patients had died, not peacefully, but in agony. Their minds fractured their souls, if you believe in such things, trapped in a state between life and death. Room 6 had been built directly on top of the hospital's treatment room, the place where the worst experiments had taken place, where reality itself had been torn and twisted. Harper theorized that the room had become a kind of dimensional trap, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was paper-thin, where the echoes of traumatic deaths could imitate, could mimic, could pretend to be alive. But understanding the phenomenon didn't help us escape it. The figures continued to watch, continued to wait, and slowly, we all began to realize that they weren't just watching us. They were learning from us. Every day, they became more convincing. Their movements more natural, their facial expressions more human. They were studying us, preparing to replace us. Harper's final theory, shared with me just days before she disappeared, was that eventually, the figures would become perfect copies, indistinguishable from the originals, and then they would step into our lives, taking our places, while we, the real U.S., would find ourselves trapped in room 6, adding our voices to the chorus of the lost, the stolen, the replaced. 3 months ago, Harper stopped answering her phone. 2 months ago, I drove to her apartment and found it empty, cleaned out, as if she had never lived there. But the landlord had no record of Harper Johnson ever being a tenant. Her employer, the environmental consulting firm where she had worked, had no record of anyone by that name. It was as if Harper had never existed. And yet, I still see her sometimes, the figure that looks like Harper, standing with the others in my yard, watching my house. But this Harper is different, more fluid in her movements, more natural in her expressions. She looks more real than the original ever did. Last week, I made a decision. I drove back to the Sunset Manor Motel. I had to know. I had to see room 6 one more time, to understand what I was dealing with. The motel looked exactly the same, except for one thing. Room 6 door was wide open. Not damaged, not broken, just open, as if it was inviting me in. I stood in the parking lot for hours, staring at that open doorway, listening. And from inside, I could hear voices. Amelia's voice calling my name. Daniel's voice asking me to help. Harper's voice telling me she was scared. But underneath their voices, I could hear something else. My own voice, practicing, rehearsing, learning to be me. I realized then that the others, my teammates, they hadn't disappeared. They were still in room 6. And something wearing their faces was walking around in the world, living their lives, being them. I should have run, should have driven away and never looked back. But I couldn't, because from deep inside room 6, I heard one more voice. A voice I recognized from old home movies, from childhood memories I had almost forgotten. My father's voice calling my name. My father, who had died when I was 12, who had been driving through Illinois on a business trip, whose body was never found. Benjamin. His voice echoed from the darkness of room 6. Son, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting so long, please. Come help your old man. And I understood then the true horror of room 6. It didn't just collect people, collected families. It brought families together in the only way it could, by trapping them forever. I took one step toward the open door, then another, and another. The voices grew louder, more welcoming, my father's voice mixing with those of my friends, all calling me to join them. I was almost at the threshold when my phone rang. The sound broke the spell, snapped me back to reality. I looked at the screen. It was Charlotte Williams calling, with shaking hands. I answered. Benjamin. Her voice was urgent, panicked. Where are you? I'm at the motel. I whispered. I'm about to go into room 6. No, she screamed. Don't go in there. Walk away. Walk away right now. But my father, he's in there, and my friends. They're not your father. Charlotte's voice was breaking. They're not your friends. Benjamin, I'm your sister. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I'm Charlotte Carter, not Charlotte Williams. I changed my name, moved to Canada. I've been trying to protect you, trying to keep you away from that place. My mind reeled. Charlotte, my sister, who had disappeared when I was 15, who had been declared dead after a car was found abandoned on this same highway. Charlotte, I whispered, you're alive. Barely, she replied. I escaped from room 6 20 years ago, but I can never truly leave. It calls to me every day, tries to pull me back. I've been hiring cleaning crews, maintenance teams, anyone who could keep the building from falling apart without getting too close to room 6. But why didn't you tell me? Because if you knew I was alive, you would have come looking for me. And eventually, you would have found that place, just like you did now. I was backing away from room 6, the voices inside growing angry, desperate. How do I make it stop? I asked. How do I make them leave me alone? You can't. Charlotte's voice was filled with sorrow. Once room 6 knows about you, once it has your voice, your image, it never lets go. The only way to stop them from taking your place is to. She couldn't finish the sentence. To what? I demanded. To take someone else's place in room 6, she whispered. To feed it a substitute, to give it someone else to mimic, to replace. I felt sick. I won't do that. I won't sacrifice someone else. Then you'll spend the rest of your life running, Charlotte said. And eventually, they'll catch up, they'll take your place, and you'll become another voice in room 6, calling to the next victim. I was in my truck now, driving away from the motel as fast as I could. There has to be another way, I said. There is, Charlotte replied, but you won't like it. Tell me. Burn it down, she said. Burn the entire motel down, with room 6 sealed inside. Trap whatever is in there with fire. Let it burn until there's nothing left but ash. Will that work? I don't know, she admitted, but it's the only thing we haven't tried. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've been preparing. I've bought gasoline, accelerant, everything I need to turn the Sunset Manor Motel into an inferno. The figures still watch my house, but they're getting more aggressive, more bold. This morning, I found one of them, the one that looks like me, sitting at my kitchen table, eating breakfast. It looked up when I entered, smiled with my face, and said in my voice, "Good morning, Benjamin. I think it's time for us to trade places." I ran, grabbed my supplies, and drove straight to the motel. It's sunset now. The sky is blood red again, just like it was that first night. I'm sitting in my truck in the parking lot of the Sunset Manor Motel, cans of gasoline in the back, a box of matches in my pocket. Room 6 door is still open, still inviting. And the voices, they're calling to me again. But this time, I'm not listening to my father's voice or my friends' voices. This time, I'm listening to Charlotte's voice, coming from deep inside the room. "Benjamin," she's saying, "I lied to you. I never escaped. I'm still here, trapped in room 6, please. Come help your sister. Please don't leave me here alone." But I know it's not really her. The real Charlotte is safe in Canada. The real Charlotte warned me to stay away. This is just another trick, another attempt to lure me into that cursed room. I'm gonna burn it all down. Every room, every wall, every board and nail and scrap of that cursed place. I'm going to burn it until there's nothing left but a smoking crater in the ground. And if that doesn't work, if the figures still come for me, if room 6 somehow survives, then at least I'll have tried. At least I'll have fought back against the darkness that stole my friends, that stole my sister, that has been stealing people for over 60 years. The sun is setting completely now. Time to end this. Time to burn room 6 and everything in it. I can see them now, standing in the doorway. Daniel, Harper, Amelia, my father, and someone who might be Charlotte. All of them waving at me, smiling, beckoning me to join them. But behind them, deeper in the room, I can see the real shapes, the things they really are. Shadows without substance, echoes without source, hunger without end. I'm getting out of the truck now. I'm walking toward the motel, but not toward room 6. I'm going to start with room 1 and work my way down the line. Gasoline on every surface, every wall, every piece of furniture. And then, when I reach room 6, I'm going to throw the last can of gasoline right through that open doorway. And I'm going to light a match. And I'm going to run. The voices are getting louder now, more desperate. They know what I'm planning. They're trying to stop me, calling my name, pleading with me. But I won't listen. I won't be fooled again. I'm going to burn it all down. And if you're listening to this, if you're watching this video, stay away from the Sunset Manor Motel. Stay away from room 6. And if you ever see figures that look like people you know, standing in your yard, watching your house, standing in your yard with eyes that never blink, run. Don't try to help them. Don't try to communicate with them. Just run. And whatever you do, never go looking for room 6. Because some doors should never be opened. Some rooms should never be entered. And some places should be left to burn. I'm at room 1 now. The gasoline fumes are making me dizzy, but I have to keep going. I can hear them behind me, getting closer, their footsteps echoing in the empty parking lot. The match is in my hand, trembling, ready to light. But as I pour the gasoline, I notice something I hadn't seen before, carved into the doorframe of room 1. Words, scratched hastily, desperately. They made me do it. I'm sorry, DM. Daniel Martinez. My hands are shaking now. Daniel had been here. He had come back, just like he said he would, but he hadn't been trying to end this. He had been feeding it. Room 2, more gasoline, more messages carved into the wood. Forgive me. I had no choice. It's J. Harper Johnson. Room 3. I'm so sorry. They promised they'd stop. F. Amelia Foster. They had all come back. All tried to make deals with whatever lived in room 6. All had been forced to bring new victims, new voices for the collection. That's how the motel stayed in business all these years. The people it captured. They became its recruiters, luring others to the same fate. The gasoline is almost gone. I'm at room 5 now, so close to room 6 that I can feel the cold radiating from inside, can hear the voices more clearly than ever. But now I understand. The voices aren't trying to escape. They're trying to recruit. Every plea for help, every desperate cry, it's all bait, designed to draw in the sympathetic, the curious, the brave. People like me. People like my sister. People like my father. I'm standing in front of room 6 now. The door is wide open, darkness beyond, but I can see shapes moving in that darkness, hear whispers, feel eyes watching me. The last can of gasoline is heavy in my hands. This is it. This is where it ends. I tilt the can, gasoline splashing through the doorway, soaking into whatever lies inside that cursed room. The whispers stop. The shapes freeze. Even the air seems to hold its breath. The match flares to life, bright orange flame dancing in the darkness. And for a moment, just a moment, I see them clearly. Not my friends, not my father, not my sister, but dozens of figures, hundreds maybe, all crowded into that impossible space, all wearing familiar faces, all staring at me with those terrible black eyes. Faces I recognize from missing person reports, from old newspaper clippings, from decades of disappearances. The Reynolds family from Milwaukee, a young couple from the 1970s, children who should have grown up, elderly travelers who never made it home, all of them trapped, all of them mimicking, all of them hungry. I drop the match. The gasoline ignites instantly, flames racing through room 6, consuming everything in their path. The screaming starts immediately, not human screams, something else, something wrong, like the sound of reality itself being torn apart. I run, sprinting toward my truck as the flames spread, as the motel begins to burn, as room 6 becomes a roaring inferno. Behind me, I can hear them, the figures, not the fake ones that had been watching my house, but the real ones, the trapped ones, screaming as they burn, screaming as they're finally mercifully released. I'm in my truck now, driving away, watching in my rearview mirror as the Sunset Manor Motel becomes a pillar of fire against the night sky. The flames are higher than they should be, brighter than they should be, burning with colors that don't exist. And in the center of it all, room 6 burns brightest, like a star collapsing, like a wound in the world finally healing. My phone rings. Charlotte. Benjamin. Her voice is different now, lighter. I felt it, whatever you did. I felt something break, something that's been holding on to me for 20 years. It's gone. It's burning. I tell her. All of it. Room 6, the whole motel, it's all burning. Good, she whispers, and I can hear her crying. It's finally over. But even as I drive away, even as the flames consume that cursed place, I can't shake the feeling that something followed me out. Not the figures, not the copies, something else. Something that lived deeper in room 6 than the trapped souls. Something that fed on the suffering, the fear, the desperation. Something that might have escaped in the chaos of the fire. I keep checking my mirrors, expecting to see those black eyes staring back at me. But there's nothing, just darkness and the distant glow of the burning motel. It's been 6 months since I burned down the Sunset Manor Motel. The official report blamed faulty electrical wiring in the abandoned building, old infrastructure, a tragic but predictable accident. No one investigated too closely. No one asked too many questions. The land was bought by a development company within weeks. They're building a shopping center on the site, as if nothing ever happened there, as if room 6 had never existed. Charlotte and I have been rebuilding our relationship. 20 years of believing she was dead. It's not easy to process. She's moved back to Chicago. We meet for coffee every week, trying to piece together our shattered family. She tells me stories about our father, about the business trip that led him to the Sunset Manor Motel, about how she went looking for him and found room 6 instead, about the 15 years she spent trapped in that place, watching, learning, until she finally found a way to project herself outside, to make that phone call that saved my life. The figures have stopped appearing. No more watchers in my yard. No more phone calls with my own voice. Sometimes I catch myself checking the shadows, listening for footsteps, expecting to see black eyes staring through my windows, but they never come. Whatever connection existed between me and room 6, it died in the fire, or so I tell myself. Last week, I started a new job, back to cleaning, but only office buildings now, places with plenty of light and people and security cameras. No more abandoned places, no more isolated locations, no more mysterious clients with generous payments. My new co-worker, a young man named Tyler Brooks, asked me about my previous job, why I left Midwest Restoration Services. I told him it was a career change, better benefits, shorter hours. But Tyler is persistent, curious. He keeps asking questions about restoration work, about abandoned buildings, about places that need cleaning. Yesterday, Tyler showed me a job posting he found online. Good money for a simple cleaning contract. An old roadside motel about an hour outside the city. He was excited, eager. Said it would be a great experience. A chance to make some extra cash. The address looked familiar. When I researched it, when I drove out to look at the location, my blood went cold. It's the same stretch of highway, the same plot of land. But instead of a shopping center under construction, there's a motel. A different motel, newer looking, but with the same layout, the same room configuration. And room 6. Room 6 has the same heavy steel door, the same concrete walls, the same chains wrapped around the handle. I called the development company. They have no record of ever owning that land. I called the city planning office. They have no permits for any construction in that area. I called Charlotte. She drove out to meet me. We stood together in the parking lot of this impossible place. It's not the same building, she said, but her voice was shaking. No, I agreed. It's not the same building, but it's the same room. Room 6 doesn't belong to any building. It doesn't exist in any one place. It moves, it recreates itself. It finds new locations, new victims. Burning down the Sunset Manor Motel didn't destroy room 6. It just forced it to relocate. Tyler called me this morning, excited. He got the cleaning contract. Starts tomorrow, good money, easy work. Just clean around one room that's off limits. Room 6. I tried to warn him, tried to explain, but he thought I was joking, or jealous, or crazy. It's just a room, he laughed. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. I know I should let it go, should walk away, should let Tyler make his own choices. But I can't. Not when I know what's waiting for him in room 6. Not when I know that soon, very soon, his voice will join the chorus, calling to the next victim. So tomorrow, I'm going back. Not to clean, not for money, but to save Tyler Brooks if I can. And if I can't, if room 6 has already claimed him, then I'll burn it down again, and again, and again, as many times as it takes, as many locations as it moves to. Because some fights, some responsibilities, they never end. They just follow you, from place to place, from life to life, until you find a way to win, or you become part of the problem. I'm loading my truck now, gasoline, matches, everything I need. Charlotte is helping. She knows what we have to do. We're going to save Tyler. We're going to destroy room 6 again. And then, when the flames die down, when the ashes settle, we're going to wait. Because room 6 will come back. It always comes back. In a new place, with a new face, but always the same. Always hungry. Always hunting. Always waiting for the next person curious enough, brave enough, foolish enough to open the door. But maybe, just maybe, if we keep fighting, if we keep burning it down, if we keep saving people like Tyler, maybe eventually, Room 6 will give up. Maybe it will move on to some other dimension, some other reality, where there are no Benjamin Carters to oppose it. Or maybe not. Maybe this is my life now, my purpose, my curse, to be the guardian against Room 6, the protector of the innocent, the voice of warning that no one ever believes, until it's too late. I can see the motel now, in the distance, glowing under the afternoon sun. It looks peaceful, normal, just another roadside stop. But I know better. I know what lurks behind that steel door, what waits in the darkness of Room 6, the voices, the hunger, the endless cycle of predator and prey. Tyler's truck is already in the parking lot. I'm too late to stop him from starting, but maybe if I hurry, I can stop him from finishing. Charlotte is calling the fire department, telling them about a gas leak at the motel. Anything to get first responders to the scene. People who can witness what happens, who can help if things go wrong, because they will go wrong. They always go wrong. Room 6 doesn't give up its victims easily. I'm getting out of my truck now, walking toward the motel office, looking for Tyler. The parking lot is empty except for his vehicle. No other cars, no other people. Just like before, just like always. I can hear voices coming from Room 6, muffled, indistinct, but familiar now. Tyler's voice, calling for help, pleading, begging. But I know it's not really him. Not yet. Room 6 is just practicing, learning, getting ready to add his voice to the collection. I have to find the real Tyler. Have to get him away from Room 6 before it's too late. Before he becomes another echo, another lure, another trap for the next victim. The office door is unlocked. I push it open, calling Tyler's name. No answer. But there are cleaning supplies scattered around, a bucket of soapy water, abandoned gloves, signs that Tyler was here, was working, until something interrupted him. Something called him away from his job. Something drew him toward Room 6. I can hear Charlotte's voice now, coming from inside Room 6, weak, desperate. Benjamin, help me. I'm trapped, please. Don't leave me here. But Charlotte is outside, in her car, calling for backup. This is just Room 6, playing its games, using familiar voices to lure me closer. I won't fall for it again. I won't be fooled. But then I hear another voice, one that stops me cold. My mother's voice calling my name, asking me to come home. My mother, who died when I was 8, who I never got to say goodbye to. I know it's a trap. I know it's not really her. But the voice is so perfect, so full of love and longing. Just like I remember from childhood. My feet are moving toward Room 6, against my will, against my better judgment. The steel door is open, darkness beyond, but I can hear her clearly now. Benjamin, my sweet boy, Mommy's been waiting for you. Come home to Mommy. Tears are streaming down my face. 27 years of missing her, of wishing I could see her again, hear her voice. And here she is, calling to me, wanting me to come home. I'm at the threshold now, 1 foot inside Room 6, the gasoline can forgotten, the matches scattered on the ground. The darkness is warm, welcoming, filled with familiar voices. My mother, my father, Charlotte, all the friends I've lost over the years, all calling my name, all telling me they love me, all asking me to join them, forever, in Room 6, where families are reunited, where the dead live again, where no one ever has to be alone. But something makes me stop, something makes me look back. Tyler, the real Tyler, tied up in the corner of the office, gagged, trying to scream a warning. His eyes are wide with terror. He's seen what's in Room 6, he knows what it really is, and he's trying to save me. Even though he barely knows me, even though he's helpless, he's trying to warn me away. Just like someone tried to warn the people who came before. Just like the message carved in concrete. Do not open. They are not alive. The spell breaks, the voices fade, and I see Room 6 for what it really is. Not a place of reunion, not a gateway to the dead, but a prison, a trap, a feeding ground for something that should never have existed. I back away from the door, grab the gasoline can, start dousing the entrance. The voices turn angry, desperate, threatening. They promise me pain, promise me loss, promise me that I'll never see my real family again. But I've heard these threats before, and I've learned not to listen. Tyler is safe now, unconscious, but breathing, away from the motel, in Charlotte's car. The fire department is here. The police are here, asking questions I can't answer. But they can see the flames, can see room 6 burning, can witness the end of another nightmare, even if they don't understand what they're really seeing. Even if their reports will blame faulty wiring, or arson by transients, or some other rational explanation. At least they're here. At least there are witnesses. At least room 6 won't disappear quietly this time. The flames are higher now, brighter, consuming the motel room by room. But room 6 burns differently. The fire there is cold blue, unnatural. And in the flames, I can see shapes, figures, dozens of them. Not burning, but fading, dissolving, finally being released from their prison, finally allowed to rest. Tyler wakes up as we're driving away, confused, traumatized, but alive. He asks what happened, why the motel is burning, why he was tied up. I tell him he had an accident, hit his head, that we found him unconscious and called for help. He doesn't believe me. I can see it in his eyes. But he doesn't push, doesn't ask more questions. Some truths are too dangerous to know. Some experiences are too terrible to remember. Better to let him think it was an accident, a close call, a story he'll tell at parties, than to burden him with the truth about room 6. That was a month ago. Tyler quit the cleaning business, moved to another state, found work in an office. Charlotte and I keep in touch. We watch the news. We monitor real estate transactions, looking for signs, waiting for room 6 to resurface. Because it will, it always does, in a new location, with a new face, but always the same hunger, always the same method, always looking for the next victim, the next voice to add to its collection. But something's different this time. Something's changed. The burns on my hands from the gasoline, they're not healing normally. They're forming pattern symbols, like scars that spell out words. Words I don't recognize, in languages I've never seen. Charlotte says she has them too, on her arms, her back, everywhere the flames touched her. We think they're marks, brands, signs that room 6 has claimed us, not as victims, but as opponents, as enemies to be tracked, to be hunted, to be eliminated. We've started having the same dreams, nightmares where we're back in room 6, trapped with all the voices, all the echoes. But in the dreams, we're not victims. We're guards, protectors, sentries, standing watch over something even worse than the room itself. Something that room 6 was built to contain, to imprison, to keep from escaping into our world. And every time we burn it down, every time we destroy room 6, we weaken the prison, crack the walls, make it easier for that something to break free. Last night, both Charlotte and I had the same dream, at the same time, in different cities. We were standing in room 6, but it wasn't empty. There was something there, something massive, something ancient, something that spoke without words, communicated through pure terror. It told us that room 6 wasn't a predator, wasn't a hunter. It was a cage, built to hold something far worse, something that had been imprisoned for millennia. And we, in our ignorance, in our determination to help, we had been weakening the cage, setting it free, one burn motel at a time. We don't sleep anymore. Charlotte and I. We research, we study. We try to understand what we've unleashed. The scars on our skin grow darker each day, more complex, more painful. And sometimes, late at night, we hear voices. Not the familiar voices from room 6, not the mimic pleas for help, but something else, something older, something that has been waiting. Waiting for the prison to weaken, for the walls to crack, for the guards to fail. Waiting to escape, to hunt, to feed, on a scale that makes room 6 look like a minor inconvenience. There's a new job posting online, another cleaning contract, another abandoned motel. But this time, the listing is different. It's not asking for cleaners. It's asking for guards, for protectors, for people willing to stand watch, to maintain the cage, to keep the prisoner contained, to sacrifice themselves if necessary, to keep something far worse than room 6 from breaking free. Charlotte and I, we'll take the job, not because we want to, not because we're brave, but because we're the only ones who understand, who know what's at stake, who carry the scars that mark us as the chosen guardians, the reluctant protectors of a prison we can never let break. So if you ever see job postings like ours, cleaning contracts for abandoned motels, generous pay for simple work, if you ever find yourself standing outside room 6, hearing voices, feeling the cold, if you ever think about opening that steel door, about helping the voices inside, remember this story, remember my warning. Some doors are meant to stay closed, some rooms are meant to stay empty, some prisons are meant to hold their captives forever, and some guardians, some protectors, some reluctant heroes, they're meant to stand watch for eternity, making sure that whatever sleeps in room 6, whatever dreams in the darkness, never ever wakes up, because if it does, if the prison fails, if the cage breaks, room 6 will seem like paradise compared to what comes next. Thank you for watching this terrifying journey with me. I hope this story kept you on the edge of your seat and gave you chills that will last long into the night. If you enjoyed this spine-tingling tale of Room 6 and want to see more horror stories that will haunt your dreams, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest nightmare-inducing content. Drop a comment below and let me know which part of the story scared you the most. Was it the voices calling from inside the room, the figures with black eyes watching from the yard, or the terrifying revelation about what Room 6 was really built to contain? Also tell us what kind of horror story you'd like to see next. Should we explore more haunted locations, dive into urban legends, or maybe investigate some real-life paranormal encounters? Your suggestions help us create the content that will keep you awake at night. And if you have your own supernatural experiences or local legends from your area, share them in the comments. Some of the best horror stories come from our viewers' real-life encounters with the unknown. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if it sent shivers down your spine. It really helps us reach more horror fans who are looking for their next terrifying tale. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, but remember, some doors should never be opened and some rooms should never be entered. Sweet dreams, everyone, and whatever you do, if you ever find yourself at an abandoned motel, stay far away from room 6. Before I sign off, before I leave you with nightmares about room 6, there's one last thing I need to tell you. What happened 3 days ago, and why I'm recording this final message from inside room 6. It started when Charlotte disappeared. She was supposed to meet me for our weekly check-in, our ritual of ensuring each other's safety, making sure neither of us had been taken by the entity. But she never showed up. I went to her apartment, found the door unlocked, the place ransacked, signs of a struggle. But no blood, no body, just gone, like she had been erased from existence. That's when I realized the entity had been playing a longer game than we thought. It hadn't been trying to escape. It had been learning, studying us, preparing for something bigger. Charlotte's phone was still on her kitchen table, and it was ringing. When I answered, I heard her voice, but wrong, hollow, like an echo. "Benjamin," she said, "I'm in room 6, the original room 6. I need you to come. I need you to open the door." "Where are you?" I demanded. "Which location? Which motel?" "I'm in all of them," she replied. "Room 6 isn't just a room anymore. It's a network, a web connecting every abandoned place, every forgotten location, and I'm trapped in the center of it all." The call ended, but then my phone buzzed with a text message. An address, coordinates, and a single word: "Come." The location was an old psychiatric hospital, the same one Harper had researched, the original site where room 6 had first manifested. I should have called for help, should have contacted authorities. But who would believe me? And besides, Charlotte was my sister, my responsibility in my family. I couldn't abandon her, not again. The hospital had been demolished decades ago. Nothing remained but a foundation and some concrete steps leading down to what had once been a basement. But as I descended those steps, as I walked deeper into the ruins, the walls began to materialize around me. Stone corridors, flickering lights, the sound of footsteps echoing from somewhere ahead. I was walking through the hospital as it had existed in the 1940s, experiencing it through some kind of temporal echo. And at the end of the corridor, there it was, room 6, but not like I'd ever seen it before. The door was open, inviting, and inside, I could see Charlotte. She was sitting on a bed, looking peaceful, normal, like she was just waiting for me to visit. "Benjamin," she called. "Come in, we need to talk." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave, to burn the place down like we had before. But she looked so real, so alive, so much like my sister. I took one step into the room, then another. The temperature dropped, the walls began to shift, and suddenly I realized the truth. I wasn't in the past. I was in the entity's domain. Pocket dimension, where it could control everything, where it was strongest. "You're not Charlotte," I said, backing toward the door. But the door was gone. The walls had sealed. I was trapped. "Oh, but I am," she replied, standing up, moving toward me with movements that were almost right, almost human. "I'm Charlotte and Harper and Amelia and Daniel and your father and everyone else who ever entered room 6. Her face began to change, cycling through the features of everyone I'd lost, everyone the entity had claimed. "We're all here, all part of the collection, all waiting for you to join us." That's when I understood the entity's true plan. It hadn't been trying to escape to our world. It had been building its own world, creating a perfect replica of our reality, populated by perfect copies of everyone it had ever taken. "This is better," the thing wearing Charlotte's face said. "Here, no one ever dies, no one ever leaves, families are together forever, in perfect harmony." Around me, the room expanded, became a house, my childhood home, complete with my parents, my sister, everyone I'd ever loved, all of them smiling, welcoming me, asking me to stay. "Just let go," my mother said, reaching out to touch my face. "Stop fighting, stop running, come home." For a moment, I was tempted. This version of my family was perfect, happy, whole, everything I'd always wanted. But then I noticed something, their eyes. They never blinked, never looked away, never stopped staring at me with that same hungry expression I'd seen in room 6. These weren't my family. They were echoes, shadows, puppets controlled by something that had never understood love, only consumption. I pulled out the matches I always carried, the same ones I'd used to burn down the motels. "You can't burn this place down," fake Charlotte laughed. "This isn't the physical world. This is pure thought, pure desire, the perfect prison." But I wasn't planning to burn the room. I was planning to burn myself. The scars on my arms, the marks that connected me to the entity, they were like a tether, a link between the creature's dimension and our reality. If I severed that connection, if I destroyed the guardian bond, maybe, just maybe, I could collapse this pocket dimension, trap the entity in its own perfect world forever. The match flared to life. Immediately, the fake family began screaming, not in pain, but in fear. "No," they cried. "You'll destroy everything. You'll kill us all." "You're already dead," I replied. "You died the moment you entered room 6. I'm just setting you free." I touched the flame to my scarred arm. The pain was incredible, like being struck by lightning, like having my soul torn apart. But something else happened too. The fake world around me began to crack, to crumble, reality breaking apart like glass. And through the cracks, I could see the others, the real others. Charlotte, Harper, Daniel, Amelia, my father, all the people who had been trapped, all the souls the entity had been mimicking. They were standing in the cracks, free, finally free. "Thank you," Charlotte whispered as she began to fade. "Thank you for letting us go." One by one, they disappeared, not destroyed, but released, allowed to pass on to whatever comes after. But as they left, as the entity's collection was depleted, it grew desperate, angry. The pocket dimension began to collapse, pulling me deeper, trying to make me the new foundation, the new anchor for its existence. I felt myself being absorbed, becoming part of room 6, adding my voice to its chorus. But this time, I wasn't afraid, because I realized someone has to guard the guardian. Someone has to stay behind, to make sure the entity never finds another way out, never builds another collection. Someone has to be the eternal watcher, the final sacrifice. So here I am, in the true room 6, the original, the source. I can feel the entity, weakened but not destroyed, angry but contained. It whispers to me sometimes, tries to tempt me, offers me visions of the life I could have had. But I don't listen. I just wait and watch and make sure it never, ever breaks free again. If you're listening to this, if someone finds this recording, don't try to rescue me. Don't try to find room 6. Don't try to destroy it. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The guardian of the guardian, the watcher of the watcher, the final lock on a door that must never be opened. But remember, if you ever see abandoned motels, empty rooms with steel doors, if you ever hear voices calling for help from places they shouldn't be, if you ever feel the urge to open doors that should stay closed, remember my story, remember room 6, remember that some sacrifices are necessary, and some prisons are meant to last forever. Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing witness to my story. And whatever you do, wherever you go, whatever doors you encounter in your life, remember, some rooms should never be entered, some voices should never be trusted, and some guardians must guard alone forever. This is Benjamin Carter, signing off from room 6, where I'll be waiting, watching, protecting you all from the darkness that should never see light. But before I go, before the recording ends, I need to tell you one final truth. The scars, the guardian marks, they're not unique to me and Charlotte. They're appearing on others, on people who get too close to abandoned places, who hear voices where there should be silence. If you have unexplained marks on your skin, if you've been having dreams about dark rooms and hungry voices, you might be next, you might be chosen. And if that happens, if room 6 calls to you, remember my story, remember the choice I made, remember that someone has to stand guard, even if it means standing guard forever. The cycle continues, the guardian's burden passes on, and somewhere, in some abandoned place, room 6 waits for its next keeper, its next sacrifice, its next eternal prisoner. Will it be you?